Hello, sweet parents. Welcome to the When Our Adult Children Walk Away podcast. My name is Dr. Janet Steinkamp, and during each episode of When Our Adult Children Walk Away, I will provide my professional and personal insights, information and opportunities for your self-reflection and growth, tips and tricks to make every day count, and encouragement to keep moving forward. I'm here to help you dig deep and get down to the root causes so that you can find your way out of the darkness to a positive and lasting relationship. Grab your notebook and a pen, settle into your favorite chair, and let's get to it. In this episode, we are going to take another deeper dive into coercive control. Specifically today, we're looking at gatekeepers and how we as parents can manage them. We're going to look at some tips and tricks on how to communicate and stay in contact with our adult child and not enrage or inflame the coercive partner. This is tricky because as we as parents work to improve trust, create more trust, align our communication so our intended message is what our adult child can hear, and understand their communication style so we can hear their messages, we become increasingly threatening to the partner. We're combating basically what they're trying to destroy. So every time we try to strengthen, they have to increase their attempts to destroy. So how can we leave the light on, maintain open communication, and not make things worse for our adult child? Coercive control is a form of psychological abuse. It happens in personal relationships, intimate partner relationships. It can happen at work. It can happen really in any relationship that has a personal aspect to it, where there's some kind of power dynamic and regular contact and dependency can be created. So unlike physical violence, you rarely see any kind of physical evidence. Maybe the gifts you gave your son or daughter for Christmas disappear. I know my son gave my daughter a whole bunch of pottery. He was a potter at the time. And one by one, when she did something wrong, her coercive partner would smash a cup, smash a piece of her brother's pottery, until eventually it was all gone. One Christmas, I gave her a set of wine glasses, and I realized the last time I visited, before she left him, there was only one wine glass left. I thought, wow, there's a lot of broken glass in there, but, and that must have happened somewhere along the line. But those kinds of things are the physical evidence that you will see. Rarely do you see the actual bruises, although coercive control can lead to physical abuse or involve physical abuse. Another thing that happens is the person who's being controlled can comply, and then react. They kind of burst. Actually, what can happen is the coercively abusive partner can point to what they define as physical abuse by their victim. So they throw it back around so their person who they're controlling behaves in a way that can be defined as physical abuse, and that's another way they hold them hostage, the threat of reporting that. So I want to be real clear here. So an example would be the coercive person badgers, insists, pushes verbally, pushes, and finally the person who's receiving all of that snaps, and they maybe slap the person's face or push them to get out of the corner of a room. And anytime there's physical contact, then that becomes fodder for an accusation of physical abuse. So that it can also be a part of this very complex dynamic. So coercive control is a persistent pattern of behaviors that lead to domination, manipulation, and isolation of that person from other important people in their lives, from things they love. They can no longer go hiking. It's too dangerous. They can only drive home a certain way. They don't have the freedom to make their own decisions any longer. It's slow, it's subtle, it's quiet. So for a more in-depth explanation and a deeper dive into that, go back and listen to the introduction to coercive control episode and the first layer of peeling the onion. So let's talk about these tips and tricks. We talked in a previous episode about communication. The gatekeeper partner, we're going to call the coercive partner the gatekeeper. They are the controlling aspect of the relationship. It's very, very common that they are surveilling any communication, emails, texts, social media, phone calls. I know one couple who the gatekeeper insists that they share a cell phone, that the person he's gatekeeping isn't responsible enough to have her own phone. So he completely controls any phone communication she has. The excuse I heard her use to other people to explain this was that there was not a lot of connectivity in the house. She couldn't get texts or phone messages in the house, so really she didn't need to carry one anyway. So how do we maintain communication and not threaten this person? Okay, the first and very important tip that I'm going to give you is that we need to stay calm. The more urgent we get, the more we try to prove that this person is coercive, the more intense it's going to become. It becomes more difficult for the person who is being controlled because they become responsible for our behavior. They become or can be punished, threatened, more isolated. So we need to stay calm. We don't say bad things about the partner. We don't point out their deficits, and we don't complain about them. Man, if only she would stop doing XYZ. Why can't she just invite us to the birthday party? Whatever it is. We don't want to complain or point out any negative aspect of this partner that's concerning. So we want to stay calm. We're not combative. We're not creating drama. And we always respond. We don't react. We don't come back at zingers. If there's an insult to us, we don't insult back. We simply respond. It might be, well, you guys came to Thanksgiving last year and you made a total mess of it. We were so embarrassed in front of our friends. When you ask for examples, they may throw some strange little things out that make absolutely no sense to you and maybe really didn't even happen, but you can't correct them in front of your son or daughter because then they use that against you in a different way, that you're being irresponsible, you're not taking responsibility for your behavior. It's just a spiral. So to avoid that spiral, we respond with things like, I remember it differently, I understand what you're saying, and I am sorry. I didn't understand that was happening at the time. I certainly wouldn't want that for you. I'm sorry takes on a different meaning in that sense. I am sorry that the situation is what it is. Not responsible for it. And yet I am very sorry about this situation. It's an incredibly unfortunate situation. The other thing here that we need to be honest with ourselves about is, as Dr. Josh Coleman says, there is a kernel of truth. Our adult children did not become vulnerable to this person's targeting and grooming without some kind of background. Now, sometimes it's a traumatic event, the loss of a parent, the loss of a sibling, a significant illness, loss of a career. Oftentimes there's a lot of grief involved that weakens our resistance. It makes us more vulnerable to someone who wants us to become dependent on them. It's also true that those things can come out of how we raised our children. Often not with intention. About 25% of estrangement comes out of situations where there was abuse, sexual, physical, emotional, drugs, alcohol, some form of abuse in the household when our sons and daughters were raised. If that's the case in your circumstances, it's important that you face that and deal with it. I want to encourage you, if you're sitting, running or driving or whatever you're doing, listening to this podcast, and you're thinking, wow, that was us. I want to encourage you to seek professional help, licensed, professional mental health help. Addiction is an onion all to itself. And if your child was raised in that environment, then moving into a new environment where there is abuse will feel fairly natural for them. And it may create a situation where they are increasingly vulnerable. So that's a little sidebar there. If that's the case, I want you to strongly consider getting professional therapeutic support. Coaching will not address that for you. It will not. I am not qualified to work through the family of origins, past experiences of abuse. We do have to look at that and consider that when we're talking about how our adult child is in this situation. It is not their responsibility. It is not their fault. It's not because they were silly or foolish or weak. It's because someone saw them as vulnerable and exploited that. They groomed them, they identified the weaknesses, and they went after them. And the person slowly gets absorbed into this gatekeeper's life. Okay, so the first is to stay calm, not combative. Respond, not react. We're going to stay grounded, warm, open, and available. So we don't necessarily initiate, but we let our adult child know that we are available. So they can choose when it is safe for them and they are interested, they can reach out to us. The second tip is that we're going to direct our messages when possible. So if communication goes through the partner, if that person, the gatekeeper, is acting as the middle person, it's likely filtered. What we are saying is not necessarily the message that's being conveyed. It gets flavored with the gatekeeper's voice. So some of the tricks, you keep messages short, direct, aimed only at your son or daughter, not to the gatekeeper. So for example, "Hi Emily, I'm thinking about you today. No expectations, just letting you know I'm thinking of you." That's all. That's all you say. So your child gets the message, you convey good and positive intent, and the gatekeeper gets nothing to weaponize. That's not an everyday text or message. That's an infrequent message that's conveyed at a usual or normal time, a birthday, a family event. The point here is that if the messages are going through this middle person, understand they're going to get twisted. And when you do send messages directly to your adult child, you're short, direct, and aimed only at that adult child. No requests, no guilt, no emotion or message that can get twisted. So number 3, use safe communication channels. Well, it's really difficult to know in a situation with the gatekeeper what that safe method of communication is going to be. The surveillance typically includes, I know I repeat this a lot, the surveillance typically includes social media, email, voicemail, texting, anything that's stored like a voice message. So the way we manage that is that we look for low risk, quiet ways to reach out, like maybe a handwritten note, a text. That one is fairly a little more safe than email because it's easier to delete. So maybe texts, and you send them during private times or during the workday when you know the adult gatekeeper is not in your adult child's space. Maybe when they commute, sometimes you can send a quick text while the commute is going on. And I love this, the idea of creating a social network or a social media group. So one family I work with has a group on their Facebook that includes both grandparents and the son and daughter. In this case, it's a daughter and son-in-law, and a couple other family members. And that's where they post pictures of the child, the grandchildren, so that they're not out on social media. And the parents know when they're in trouble because the son-in-law kicks them out of the group. And then on occasion, they get to come back to the group. So that's the punishment that they receive when they become too threatening to the gatekeeper. It's a great space for the parents, the estranged parents, to be able to send a message. Great picture. It looks like you were having a lovely day, thinking of you. That's all. Glad to see it. Thanks for sharing, something like that. It's a way to stay connected that is difficult to weaponize if we don't give them fodder like guilt, some kind of emotion, blame, insinuation, innuendo. If we keep it short, clean, and unemotional, just caring, warm, and directed at whatever the picture is or your adult child, you're in a fairly safe zone. I talk about this a lot when I work with clients one-on-one, and that is speaking to the audience behind the curtain. My rule of thumb is when you're talking to your adult child, remember that's not the person you're talking to. You are talking to the gatekeeper. The message goes through your adult child to the gatekeeper almost certainly. any message needs to be worded, phrased for the recipient behind the recipient. Any message you write with the understanding that it's going to be read by someone else. In the work that I do, I keep in mind that the work I do outside of the estrangement, I coach physicians and primary care providers. I write everything with the understanding that there may be an attorney that reads it at some point. So I write everything for the court. I direct it to my client, but I write to the court and the attorneys that may read it at some time. Same here. So that means we're writing with kindness, clarity, maturity, no jabs, no guilt, no pokes at people, no did you hear, none of that. So maybe it's not sure if you know, we learned today that Uncle Ralph died. Wanted you to know, thinking of you, Mom, love Mom, something like that. It's still, you're not presenting it like, did you hear what happened? None of that. It's just kind, clear, mature, and sharing information. You're calm, and you don't show fear. There's no need to show fear here because you're managing this. You're going to manage this. So the fifth tip is to stay focused on your adult child. Even if that partner is the problem, avoid blaming or naming them directly. Again, we're not complaining about them. It can backfire because the gatekeeper can then later point to it as a weakness on your part, an attack. So a message could be something like, I hope you feel supported and free in your choices. Love you, Mom. Now, that's a strong message if you're the gatekeeper. That is a big message if you're the gatekeeper. It's also a big message to the person who's being gatekept. It lets them know that you understand what's most likely going on in their life. They may get mad. They may come back and say, why would you even say that? Because they're going to defend the gatekeeper. And on occasion, in particular circumstances, that risk is necessary because it's important that your adult child understands that you get it. And it's important at some level for the gatekeeper to understand you get it. And then we go right back to non-threatening, non-intrusive information sharing, short, brief, warm, direct, mature messages. Number 6, our 6th tip, is that we don't feed the power dynamic. Gatekeepers gain leverage when they know we're upset or reactive. We give them a foothold to strengthen their position. So we don't argue, we don't defend ourselves or beg for access or forgiveness. We may say, I hope you'll forgive me. But that's not begging for forgiveness. That's acknowledging that you've done something that you really would like them to move beyond. And that's the goal in that situation. So we keep our dignity. If silence is what's needed, we give silence. Difficult as that is, it's excruciating actually. There are times we have to be quiet and bite our tongue that we can hardly breathe through. We may need to give space. We need to understand where the boundaries are and honor them. An example of a healthy boundary might be that we've been told we need to plan only to come to the house once a month. We get a once a month visit to our grandchildren. Okay, that's going to be the boundary. Then we honor that boundary. We attempt to negotiate a schedule. And that, of course, is wrought with all kinds of room for manipulation, being held hostage, threatening, all that stuff. So we might do that by saying, we would love to come when it works for you. And so if you would let us know those dates in the month, that would be great. Would it be better for you to have that visit be around the holiday, whatever the holiday is that month, 4th of July, or a family time when you all get together anyway? Is that a time that would be more convenient for you? Or is there a weekend that might be, or a day that might be more convenient for you? Now, you can plan that date will probably change because that's the power they hold, right? But again, we're not reacting. We want to keep that door open, maintain access to our grandchildren, access to our adult child. again, there are other aspects to the estrangement that exist beyond the gatekeeper. There is family history, there are differences of opinion, different values, whatever the other aspects of the estrangement are for your adult child. We don't want to ignore those. We don't want to pretend that they don't exist. We need to continue to work on those and then quietly let our adult children know that we're doing that work. I have seen people hold on in that gatekeeping situation until they think that their parents are in a spot that they really can reconnect, that they're ready, that it's a safe space for them to come back to. And doing our work is one of the best ways to empower them to leave a gatekeeper. So, number 7, we want to validate without inserting ourselves. And what I mean by that is people in coercively abusive relationship are often expected to parrot what the gatekeeper wants them to say. And they gain favor by doing that. They make their gatekeeper happy, and that's a good thing for the person being gatekept. So it might be, we really are still angry about what happened last time we were together. We're really still very angry about that. And we've not heard you take responsibility for your actions. Okay, as a parent, we're not reacting. We're responding. Say more about that, would you? I need to learn more about what you're saying. I believe what you're saying. I believe what you're saying. It would just be really helpful to me if you could say more. And then you're not inserting yourself, but you're listening and hearing them out. Another thing that happens is the person who's being gate-kept has to take on or align with their partner. Now, in healthy relationships, we do that all the time. I align with my husband. He aligns with me. If there's somebody coming at my husband at work, I'm not happy about it. I can feel myself get defensive for them. That's a natural part of an intimate relationship, that sense of unity. My children, same way. Mama bear comes right up to the surface. I've learned to manage it, but Mama bear's right there. We defend the people that we care about. So different than that, in a gatekeeper situation, there is an expectation that the person being kept or controlled take on the values and promote the values that exist in that relationship. So if it's political, religious, gender orientation, whatever those values are, they become so intertwined with that coercive person, the gatekeeper, that their values no longer come out. They can't talk about those because that's worthy of punishment by the gatekeeper. So those go away. They take on the behaviors of the other family, perhaps. I worked with a family who the adult child just got absorbed into their new partner's family. They left their own nuclear family, and part of it was they were looking for a way out because there was some difficulty in that relationship to start with. That's what made them vulnerable. They were looking for a way out. And then as they accepted that gatekeeper's rules and moved into that relationship, they slowly got absorbed into that family, and the family gatekept. So it was very, very complex. And I work with that family still, and we talk a lot about patience and grit and keeping the light on and how to navigate that with their adult child so they're not completely cut off. So they respect the situation that adult child is in, understand it, and leave it for them to do what they need to do in that relationship. They understand what is necessary for them to lead a calm and effective life in that scenario. And the parents just can't be a part of that. So they're doing their own work, living their own life, staying in contact, but they're not inserting themselves in their son or daughter's circumstances. So a message in that situation might be, your son or daughter comes at you with a message that you know isn't really them. You know that at the core of them, that would not be something they would say or do. However, you're not going to react. You're not going to point that out. You're not going to point blame. You're not going to call them on it. The response is something like, I hear that this is how you're feeling right now. I hear it. And I respect what you're saying. And I trust you'll do what's right for you. I know you'll do what you need to do for yourself in this moment. This respects their autonomy, acknowledges their circumstances, and lets them know you are on their side. You are their ally. You're not going to cause trouble for them. You're not going to inflame the gatekeeper. You are safe for them. It's very powerful, and it's very difficult to do. Number 8, keep the long game in mind. We are playing chess, not checkers. This is a long strategic game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. In these circumstances, we talk in 6 to 18-month increments. It's life-changing for us. We need to acknowledge that and give ourselves grace and space to feel our own feelings. It's devastating. It's difficult to watch. It's excruciating to watch. And the long game is that we remain neutral, safe, and available. Number 9, we need to use our allies wisely, right? If you have not heard the episode about flying monkeys, friend or flying monkey, make sure you go back and listen to that episode, because that is a really key aspect of estrangement in general and estrangement when there is a gatekeeper. We cannot control what other people say and do. They often try to represent us. It's not uncommon to have a friend or a close relative of our adult child call or talk to us at an event or something and say, I was with Susie the other day and she's so different. I couldn't believe what's happening. And we can use that and inflame it. You are right. I can't believe it. He's such a dud, or whatever it is we're tempted to say. Instead, we want to use that opportunity wisely. That is not a time to reinforce or inflame. It's not a time for you to encourage them to spy or push or go back and try to get more information for you. That's creating a flying monkey. Instead, I suggest that you invite them to model the same things I'm suggesting you do: warmth, compassion, openness, calm, and support the adult child. Not badmouth the partner. None of the, can you believe he's with her or she's with him? I don't know what happened. They must be out of their mind. I'm so glad you see what I see because it's crazy. Now, it's okay to acknowledge, yes, we are concerned too, but we have confidence in our son or daughter. We have confidence that they will find a way to navigate this and that they will let us know if and when they need help from us. So you endorse your adult child's situation, acknowledge the friend's experience, acknowledge your own experience, and give them the tools they need to move forward in that relationship effectively. So we create an ally both for us and for the adult child. Last but not least, I want to encourage you, invite you, and be actually kind of insistent that you protect yourself and your own well-being. Again, this is the long haul. This is a long game. We are talking about staying resilient, healthy, sane. Make sure your mental health is taken care of. If you're seeing a therapist or you're feeling depressed or some anxiety, make sure you seek mental health services, licensed, professional, qualified professional help. There are a couple episodes out there about the difference between a therapist and a coach, how therapists and coaches can complement each other's work, and how different our work really is from one another. So I want you to really consider what you need to do to take care of yourself. That means not self-isolating. That means staying in contact with other people. There are still days that I feel like I just have to get out of the house. I have to go to Target and walk around the store and look for something to buy, so I am not sitting in this house perseverating over the current circumstances. It's that breath of air, opening the doors and letting the world in a little bit. Go to lunch with a friend. You don't even have to talk about any of this. Don't take it to lunch with you. Have a friendly conversation and a good time with your friend. If you want to talk to them about this, or they know what's going on and have questions, again, there are a couple episodes about how to manage that, how to present your circumstances in real time and acknowledge them and not go down into that dark, deep hole with your friend. That ruins the time with your friend. I know that you have people who care and are supportive. If you don't, then that's another conversation. And that's something I would encourage you to call me about so we can talk about some strategies to get you connected with people. Another idea to help yourself, to strengthen your own situation, is to practice these things. Not with your son and daughter in real time, not when the heat is on and you're under pressure, but just in your day-to-day life. I like to practice at Home Depot because the paint department drives me crazy. And so that's a great place for me to practice responding and not reacting. Could be any number of places, the dentist's office, the car mechanic. We talk a lot about service repair people in the work that I do. How do we speak to the dishwasher service person, and how do we manage that relationship in a way that's really effective? We need those people in our lives. And many of those strategies that we use can be applicable in estrangement. You'd be surprised how using that level of communication and engagement with our adult children in the really difficult moments can save ourselves and our adult children from unnecessary conflict or escalating the situation. So practice some of these strategies. Again, I'm happy to meet with you individually to talk about these and explore your own circumstances. You just go online and you can schedule with me through the website, or you can contact me by email. I do read my email. If you don't hear back from me, then something's wrong. So don't give up. My email is available through the podcast description or on the website. It may take me a day or two, maybe over the weekend or the holiday, but I will get back to you. And I would encourage you to subscribe to the podcast. I know there are free episodes, and I do that with intention. I never want someone to be excluded from access to care that they need. I also know that there are topics and some extended episodes that are much better behind a subscription wall. It's safer for you and it's safer for me. So to close out this episode, I first want to thank you for joining me. These are not easy topics, and the fact that you are listening and investing your time and energy and being brave enough to take this all on board is really impressive, and I commend you for it. This takes grit, and it requires a bold, brave person. So I want to acknowledge that. If this resonated with you and stirred up some grief or fear, I hope it also gave you a piece of hope and that you're not alone. If you know of somebody who would benefit from this, please feel free to share. I love it when we spread the wealth of information and help. Estrangement is complex. Coercive control is, again, that onion with all those terrible layers that really make us cry and hurt. And we need to get through this and really understand what's happening and the dynamics. We don't want to make it worse. We want to make it better for our adult child and keep the light on. I hope you'll join me again. I look forward to talking in the next episode more on coercive control and many other topics. And again, thanks for joining me.